Hi, my name is Amber, and this is my April wrap-up. So the first book that I read this month was The Rise of the Dawnstar by Farah Umarboy. This is the sequel to The Last of the Firedrakes. I was sent this by the author for review. It's a fantasy story about a main character who honestly just feels like she doesn't belong, and she soon finds out that is because she's actually from a completely different world where there is magic, creatures, and all of this insane things that she had no idea existed where her real family is. If you want to know more about what this series is about, I do have a spoiler-free review of the first book, which I will have linked down below. I absolutely adored the first book, so I was so excited to jump into the sequel, and I loved it just as much. It had some slow moments for me, but overall I still absolutely adored it. I loved seeing these characters again. Things went a completely different direction than I thought they were going to go, and we got to see so many new characters that I absolutely cannot wait to see what they continue to do in the next book. The ending of this had me shocked and sad and confused, and I'm really in love with this series, and they're such quick kind of light fantasy reads, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. The next book that I read this month was Perfect Lies by Kirsten White. This is a sequel in the final in the Mind Games duology. I do not have it to hold up right now because I actually got rid of it. Kirsten White is one of those authors where I just kept continuing to buy her books, and I had only read a few, but the few that I had read I really enjoyed, and I do plan on reading more of her works. But for this duology, there was just something missing for it. It definitely had some moments where it dragged on for me. There wasn't necessarily anything wrong with it. I just didn't really care for her story as much, especially since in the sequel we get not only her point of view but her sister Annie's point of view, and I loved Annie's point of view. I really enjoyed her side of the story and honestly wish we could have seen more of her, but there was nothing necessarily wrong with these books. They just weren't as enjoyable as I was hoping they would be. I did end up giving this 3 stars. The next book I picked up was These Ruthless Deeds by Terrence Shanker and Kelly Zekas. This is a sequel to These Vicious Masks. This is a series that's supposed to be kind of X-Men meets Jane Austen, which I think is a really good way to describe this. I think overall I enjoyed the first book more, but I did really enjoy this book and I flew right through it. I'm super excited to see where the next book's going to go. I love these characters. There's something about these characters that are just really fun. The abilities are really interesting and unique, and I really enjoy this story, so I am excited to see where the next one goes, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. The next 2 books I picked up were volumes 2 and 3 of Siren. This is every now and then someone gets this card. You make a phone call with it, you answer a bunch of questions, and then one of these days you have to answer the phone back and you end up in this alternate dimension. You have to fight to survive to get back to your home. Weird. It's such a strange concept, and I find it really interesting and unique. It's not something I've seen before. I also just really enjoy the art in this, and I absolutely adore the characters. In volumes 2 and 3 we get to meet so many more, but I ended up giving both of these 5 stars. The next book that I read this month was Bookish Boyfriends by Tiffany Schmidt. I had received an e-arc of this through NetGalley. This seemed like just a light, simple, kind of cute contemporary story. It kind of have a feel of Between the Lines by Jodi Picoult and Samantha Van Leer, where girl really likes reading, and then it seemed like characters kind of came to life, or the story just kind of gets wrapped into her real world. For the first kind of 25% of the book, I was a little worried that I wasn't going to enjoy this that much. There were just lots of issues with what was happening that I wasn't enjoying it. But once it hit about that halfway mark, you kind of figure out what's happening and why everything happens the way it is, and things take a different turn, and I flew through the rest of the book in no time at all. I enjoyed every second of that last half, and from what I know, there's supposed to be a second to this series. I don't know if it's going to be a straight continuation of this book or what exactly is going to happen there, but I hope some questions get answered because I had so many for this first one that I really wasn't expecting, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. The next book is probably my favorite book I read this entire month, and that is Heart of Iron by Ashley Poston. I have raved and raved and raved about Geekerella on this channel so many times. I have a review up which I will have linked down below, but it is one of those books that I fell in love with, so when I knew she was coming out with something else, I had to pick it up, and I'm so glad I finally did, and I sat down and read it, and I just loved every second of it. This is a sci-fi story where our main character is found as a young child by a captain of a ship with her companion robot, and this is basically kind of her story of trying to help fix him. Things just take a crazy turn and they go insane, and this is action-packed and really emotional in my opinion. It was just one of those stories where I kept turning the page and I kept wanting to read and see what was going to happen next, and I was so emotionally involved in these characters' lives and their stories and really wanted to just learn about each of them. Really excited to see where this is going to go, and I'm not surprised that I loved Something Else by her because her writing and her characters and just just everything about her books is so easy to enjoy and to fall into. So this was definitely my favorite read of the month, and I did give it 5 stars. The last book that I read this month was Renegade Red by Lauren Bird Horowitz. This is a sequel to Shattered Blue. It is a fae story where our main character just feels really drawn to a new boy at her school. She soon finds out that he is fae and he has been banished from his world, but to survive in her world he has to something called light, which he gets from human touch. I really enjoyed and loved the first book, so I was excited to see what was going to happen in the sequel. This went a completely different direction than I thought it was going to go. For the first few pages I'm honestly confused on what was happening, and once I got the grasp of that, then things took a different turn to where I was confused again. There's so much going on in this book. There are so many new things. There's so much going on between these main characters, and we get to go to the fae world in this one, and I really enjoy being able to see that side of things. Some questions are answered, and I have a ton more for the next book, so I'm hoping the next one answers some questions. I just wasn't enjoying it as much as I was hoping I would. I honestly am still somewhere between 2 and 3 stars for this, but I think because I still enjoyed these characters and I am excited to see where the next book is going to go, I ended up giving it 3 stars. So those are all the books that I read in the month of April. Let me know what you read this month down below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.